Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 19, The Island of Jambudvip, Text 15. Tana Prabhu Tvam Kukalarpitam. Tvanmayaham mamatam adokshaja. Bindyama yeneshu payam sudurabidam. Videhi yogam tvayina swabhavamiti. Tana pravo tvam kukalevararpitam. Tvanmayaham mamatam adokshaja. Bindyama nenashu vayam sudurabidam. Videhi yogam tvayina swabhavamiti. Tana pravo tvam kukalevarpitam. Tvanmayaham mamatam adokshaja. Bindyama nenashu viyam sudurabhaktam. Videhi yogam tvayina sabhavam iti. Tana pravo tvam kukalevararpitam. Tvamayaham mamatam adokshaja. Bindyama nenashu vayam sudurabhaktam. Videhi yogam tvayina sabhavamiti. Ladies. Tvana pravo tvam kukalevararpitam. Tvamayaham mamatam adokshaja. Bindyama nenashu vayam sudurabhaktam. Videhi yogam tvayina sabhavamiti. Tat. Therefore, na ar prabho, O my Lord, tvam you, kukalevara arpitam, invested in this bad body, full of stool and urine. Twat maya, by your illusory energy. Aham mamatam, the conception of I and my. Adokshaja, O transcendence. Bindyama, may give up. Yena, by which. Ashu, very soon. Vayam, we. Sudurabhitam, which is very difficult to give up. Videhi, please give. Yogam, the mystic process. Tvai, unto you. Na, our. Swabhavam, which is sympatized by a steady mind. Iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, O Lord, O Transcendence, kindly help us by giving us the power to execute Bhakti Yoga so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you. We are all infected by your illusory energy. Therefore, we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine, and anything related to the body. Except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Therefore, kindly bestow upon us this benediction. So please repeat, therefore, O Lord, O Transcendence, kindly help us by giving us the power to execute Bhakti Yoga so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you. We are all infected by your illusory energy. Therefore, we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine, and to do anything related to the body, with the body. Except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Therefore, kindly bestow upon us this benediction. Purport. The Lord advises in Bhagavad Gita, Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. The perfect yoga system consists of always thinking of Krishna, always engaging in devotional service, always worshiping Krishna, and always offering obeisances unto Him. Unless we practice this yoga system, our illusory attachment to this bad body, which is full of stool and urine, is impossible to give up. The perfection of yoga consists of giving up attachment with this body and bodily relationships and transferring that attachment to Krishna. We are very attached to material enjoyment, but when we transfer that same attachment to Krishna, we transverse the path of liberation. One has to practice this yoga system and none other. So the translation again. Therefore, O Lord, O Transcendence, kindly help us by giving us the power to execute Bhakti Yoga so that we can control our restless minds and fix them upon you. We are all infected by your illusory energy, and therefore we are very attached to the body, which is full of stool and urine, and to do anything related with the body. Except for devotional service, there is no way to give up this attachment. Therefore, kindly bestow upon us this benediction. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Sadarna. The center of the yoga system is the mind. Or as Krishna says, Udarad Atmanatmanam Atmanam Avasarayat Atmaiva Yatmano Bandhur Atmaiva Ripur Atmanaha. That a man must elevate himself by his own mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and its enemy as well. For one who has conquered the mind, it becomes the best of friends, and for one who has failed to do so, the mind will become the greatest enemy. For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached because he has attained tranquility. To such a person, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. So that's our free will. We can orientate our mind towards Krishna consciousness, or we can orientate our mind toward the ignorant misconception of identifying ourselves with the gross and subtle body, and therefore seek happiness and peace and enlightenment through the gross and subtle material bodies. The whole idea of hearing about Krishna, or Krishna consciousness, is to convince us that our real interest is to orientate our consciousness towards Krishna by utilizing our intelligence to put the mind and the senses in devotional service. We put the mind in devotional service by thinking about Krishna. We put the body in devotional service by engaging in devotional activities. Or as Krishna says, because Krishna has a very pessimistic attitude towards the material world. We've been taught to have a very optimistic attitude towards the material world, so generally it goes against our conception. As a matter of fact, we can see there's only a few devotees in the Hare Krishna movement, because most people don't want to develop a pessimistic attitude towards material existence. They want to seek the association of those who will give them some encouragement in material existence, that there is hope. Especially they advertise through technology. Then if we focus our attention and give our love to technology, then all our problems will be solved. Now, even you can have a nice relationship in family life, then don't worry, we'll create robots, and you can marry the robot. The robot will love you unconditionally. So there's hope. People may be getting less truthful and clean and tolerant and merciful, but the robots will manifest all good qualities. So this is commonly called delusion, but that's the business in the material world, is to put us in delusion. But Krishna consciousness is to convince us that no matter how much now in whatever way you may arrange the material nature, it's going to wind up to be the same thing. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, combined in different forms, with always the hope for happiness and always the disappointment over the lack of intensity and consistency of the happiness we can obtain here. On the other hand, the misery we can obtain quite steadily and quite readily. But we can't understand that unless we're actually consistently enough putting our minds upon Krishna with the right devotional attitude, that Krishna reciprocates with our attempt at least to become Krishna conscious, and he gives us a little internal energy, a little experience of his pleasure potency, so we can discern what's the difference between being in the illusory energy and being in the spiritual energy. If we don't experience the spiritual energy, then devotional service becomes external, and although it's superior, because certainly the food is superior, and we're dancing. This Sunday, how many people in Ljubljana do you think were dancing? Actually, it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the whole world is dancing with Krishna, but those who are dancing with Krishna, they're dancing the rasa dance, and those who are dancing trying to imitate Krishna, they're dancing with his illusory energy. So people are dancing under the spell of the illusory energy, but their dancing is not so pleasurable as dancing in Krishna's devotional service, the rasa dance. Although people will take offense that when it describes the body being composed of stool and urine, it seems like the Bhagavatam is quite blunt. It hurts people's feelings. that actually, how can you say things like that? But that's what the reality is. However much we want to live in our dreamland and imagine that somehow or another we're going to find happiness there, but the blunt reality is there when we have to see actually what the body is all about. We may not accept it, but as we grow old, we start realizing it's not going to be young, healthy, beautiful, attractive forever. On the other hand, if we become Krishna conscious, then our consciousness will be fixed on something which will be beautiful, enlivening, enlightening, and pleasurable forever. But then we have to see that we have an ability in the human form of life to transfer our consciousness either to the topics of spiritual existence or to topics of material existence. We can focus on how our body moves and what it's feeling and what it's doing, or we can focus on how Krishna moves, how Krishna's devotees move, how the Krishna consciousness movement moves. And therefore change our consciousness from hoping against hope that there's going to be some happiness, satisfaction now or in the future based upon our material existence, or there's going to be happiness, hope, and enlightenment based upon spiritual existence. When we utilize this body in Krishna service, actually the body becomes spiritual. The body, everything is actually spiritual, but because we're thinking it's material, therefore it's material. But it's when we add Krishna to it, then it becomes spiritualized, and we're able to realize it's actually spiritual. Actually, what becomes spiritualized is our consciousness becomes spiritualized by association with Krishna, and therefore everything becomes surcharged with that. Our consciousness becomes surcharged with spiritual energy, and we can see things as they actually are. When our consciousness is covered by the illusory energy, then we imagine things are separated from Krishna. And when our consciousness is charged in Krishna consciousness by association with Krishna, then we can see that nothing is ultimately apart from Krishna. And since Krishna is all good, everything that happens at every moment is also good. Although it may not be apparently good or immediately good, but it's ultimately all good if it helps us become Krishna conscious. If it inspires us to put our minds upon Krishna, then it's good, because putting our mind upon Krishna is all good. And if it inspires us to take our mind away from Krishna, then it's bad, because anything away from Krishna is bad. Therefore, the devotee is praying that he wants the power to execute bhakti yoga, because it's not our power, it's ultimately being invested in us, the power to do anything. Krishna is the one who gives us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He's the one who's directing the material nature. Therefore, even for materialists, they're relying upon Krishna. When Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, "Where do you get your power from, Prahlad?" He said, "From God." From the same person that you got your power from God. So similarly, whatever we can do, although we may think ourselves to be worthy and intelligent, and whatever else we may consider our external activities to be based upon, but ultimately everything we're doing is based upon the mercy of Krishna. And when we recognize that, then we'll be quite appreciative of the fact that we can engage in devotional service. The fact that we can engage in devotional service is because Krishna has sent his representatives, and those who are fortunate enough, they accept Krishna's representatives, and they follow their instructions, and that way they become empowered to engage in devotional service. So the power doesn't come by accident, It becomes from our willingness to serve Krishna's instructions in disciple succession. Then Krishna will arrange that we're under the internal energy of Krishna, and then devotional service is possible. Sadatam kirtiyanto mam itantas chad hridavrataha namastyantas mam bhaktya nityukta upasate. Or as Krishna says previously to that, Daivi yesha gunamayi mama maya dharatya mameva no mahatmanas tumam parata Daivim prakritim ashritya bhajanya nanya manaso gyatva bhutidim avya. Those who are great souls, Mahatmas, are under the internal energy of Krishna, the spiritual energy, Mahatmanas tumam parata daivim prakritim ashritya, because they've taken shelter of the spiritual energy. Mahatmanas tumam parata daivim prakritim ashritya bhajanya nanya manas. They're always engaged in worshiping me. Bhajanya nanya manaso gyatva bhutidim avyam. And therefore they perpetually engage in my devotional service. So the more we engage in Krishna's service, then the more we come under the internal energy. It doesn't matter what we're doing. We could be washing pots, we should be dancing in the kirtan, we could be reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we can be cooking for the deities. If we're actually engaged in Krishna's service, under the direction of Krishna's representatives, in order to please Krishna, then we're under the internal energy of Krishna. And gradually our consciousness will be filled with Krishna, and we'll actually understand the value of the spiritual energy. The difference between putting our consciousness in gross and subtle sense enjoyment and putting our consciousness in Krishna's enjoyment. By utilizing this body, putting our mind on Krishna, and then we can see the difference between spiritual existence and material existence. In any case, we're not going to be the doers. In one case, we'll be simply the imaginator. We'll be imagining that we're the doers. In the other, we'll see how we're under Krishna's protection and that He's making all our arrangements. And we don't have to worry about the good and bad results. We don't have to worry about the future, because we simply have to engage ourselves in Krishna's service, and simply we'll be relishing transcendental happiness in remembrance of Krishna, and whatever happens to this body, gross and subtle, won't make any difference to us, because we'll be completely detached from it. But the activities of this gross and subtle body will actually be utilized in Krishna's service for our benefit and for everyone else's benefit. Therefore, we'll be doing the greatest welfare work for ourselves and others, and therefore we'll be able to benefit not only ourselves, but everyone else in this unfortunate material existence. Anything else outside of that is questionable, whether certainly there is no permanent benefit that anyone can achieve in this material world for themselves or to help others. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
So we often see we are absorbed in our own world. So how to see us in a bigger picture inside the mission?
Read Bhagavad Gita. Ukramantam sthitiṃ vapi punjana vagunanvita vimura nana pashanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish, they can understand how the living entity quits his body, or what kind of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature, but those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see all this clearly. So we have to see with jnana chakshush, with the eyes of knowledge. Samam pashan hi sarvatra, samam vashati samam pashan hi sarvatra, samam vastitam ishvaram, nihenastyatmanatmanam tato yati param gati. One who can see the supersoul accompanying all living entities and all bodies, and knows that neither the supersoul nor the soul within the destructible body is ever destroyed, he actually sees. one who can see that the Super Soul is equal everywhere, does not degrade himself by his mind unless he approaches the supreme destination. So we should see how every living entity is Krishna's eternal servant, how the material nature is under Krishna's control. Then we'll be able to see it properly. And if we see like that, then we'll have some opportunity to act properly also. And if we don't see properly, then there's no possibility of acting properly. Is that right? Anything else? Oh, yes.
Do we have the same ability to control the mind, at least theoretically, or does it depend on karma, or I mean, is it in the domain of the soul to control the...
Well, we're not exactly going to control the mind.
I mean, to direct it towards...
We don't exactly direct it. We desire.
Okay.
So we desire to hear about Krishna, then we have a possibility of making the proper choice. We can remain detached from whatever the mind wanders to, and instead bring it back by thinking about Krishna, taking a positive alternative. So we can say we control the mind by our desiring to become Krishna conscious. It's considered that for one who's conquered the mind, this super soul is already reached. So when we think about Krishna, then Krishna is actually, he's Rishikesh. He is the control of the mind and senses. So we take shelter of Rishikesh through his instructions in disciple succession, then the mind is considered controlled. And as soon as we don't take shelter of Rishikesh in disciple succession, then the mind is considered uncontrolled.
So our part is detachment.
Well, our attachment to the instructions of Krishna and detachment from everything else. Unless we hear from Krishna and his representative, then there's no alternative but to think about whatever the mind has been conditioned to think about. But when we hear about Krishna and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that's why just hearing about Krishna's pastimes was not as helpful as finding out how to properly desire to become, for instance, detached from the wanderings of the mind, contemplation of the objects, how to withdraw, how to desire that the mind think about Krishna. So unless we have that information, we have no access to do anything else other than watch the mind wander. Anything else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribo.